Welcome everybody to this Unily webinar, where we're going to be covering how to level up employee experience in the energy industry with an intranet. Thank you for taking the time to join us. In terms of today's webinar, just a little bit of a preamble here. We're not here to carry out a sales pitch. We're really here to try and inspire everybody who takes the time to join our webinars. Hopefully everyone who joins can take some key learning away and be inspired to help them, help you all go on and tackle your challenges and be the best at what you do. So with that said, in terms of today's webinar, I wanted to just cover quickly with you our speakers today and the people that have joined us to kind of share their insights with all our attendees. So my name is Matthew Boyd and I'm the product evangelist at Unily. And today, as part of our discussion around employee experience in the energy industry, we're joined by a Unily client, TechnipFMC, and we're also joined by our partner, Arctus. So from Arctus, we're joined by Sebastian Chattel, and from TechnipFMC, for those of you who registered early on, you may have recognized that Stella Fumi was going to be our TechnipFMC speaker today. Unfortunately, due to unforeseen circumstances, she was unable to join us, but Doug Green has very kindly stepped in and will be talking on behalf of TechnipFMC today, and we're going to be covering some great content. In terms of the agenda for today's webinar, we're going to do a few more slides around introduction, just covering the kind of organizations that are on the call today to give you a bit of background. Then I'm going to lead on a portion covering employee experience challenges and the innovative solutions that are available to tackle those. At which point I'm going to be handing over to our partner Arctus and our client TechnipFMC, and together they're going to talk to you about TechnipFMC's intranet project, the implementation, the consulting that went around that, as well as the results delivered at the end of that project. So that will form the core of our webinar today, a great customer case study. And finally, I'm going to touch on at the very end a little bit about the future with Unily and TechnipFMC. So jumping straight into those intro slides, a little bit of background to Unily. This map gives you an idea of where we're distributed around the world. And I myself am based out of the UK, but offices in the US, Australia, for example. We have 260 plus customers currently using our employee experience platform. And that's serving more than 3 million users around the world. And a few notes there around our security accreditations. Our vision is to create meaningful digital experiences for employees that unite enterprises, powering better work for everyone. And in pursuit of that, we have achieved some industry recognition, some of which is on screen for you now. And now I'd like to hand over to Doug to talk briefly about TechnipFMC.
Thanks, Matthew. So TechnipFMC is a global leader in the energy industry, delivering projects, products, technologies, and services. We're built of three main segments: subsea, Technip Energies, and surface, with over 37,000 employees across 48 countries and a total revenue of 13.4 billion in 2019. So I won't go ahead and read this slide to you. It's pretty clear, but our vision is what we aspire to do, and our purpose is why we exist as a company. And I will introduce Sebastian and Arctus to kind of give an overview of their company as well.
Hi, Sebastian. I think maybe you are muted at the
Oh,
moment.
I thought I
Ah,
unmuted myself. Sorry. So
no worries. You're back now.
yeah.
Thank you.
So yeah, I was saying we were a consultancy company of internal digital project based in Paris, and we are doing project in internal communications, collaboration, and innovation. We are so same a bit the same as Doug. I'm not going to read through these slides, but we're operating since 13 years in a small and medium and big organization, mostly French, but also as TechnipFMC international projects. A little bit just on the side of our client project, we're also publishing surveys and observatories for about internal digitalization, and we also have an agnostic approach. We work with most of the major internet portal solutions, and we're very happy to be in Unily partner, as it's a great platform.
Great. Thank you very much. With that said, I'm just going to slip on, just jump ahead to our last bits of housekeeping here. Before we jump into the real meat of our presentation. So one thing I wanted to recommend as a potential follow-up read for our attendees today was Unily's new report on the future of the sustainable workplace. It's an interesting guide that we've produced in collaboration with Dr. Leila Akaraglu, and it's a piece of follow-up reading that you might find useful and can be downloaded for free from our website. So with that said, I'm going to take the lead now and talk to you a little bit about the employee experience challenges that we see, working closely with our clients, some of which we feel will be unique to the energy industry, and others which we find to be, more pervasive across industries. Um, and I wanted to ask if you can at this point as an attendee to go to polev.com/Unily. And I want to start by getting your feedback and your input to guide a little bit of our discussion. What are the biggest employee experience challenges you face in the energy sector? And I can see that somebody is quick off the mark, straight in there with compliance, which is a very interesting point. Outdated technology, something we'll definitely be covering today. Remote working, yes, we'll definitely be talking about that too. Frontline engagement, thank you. Learning new skills, yes, absolutely, something we'll be touching on. And I think this is good, because what it's telling me is that the kind of employee experience challenges that that you're coming across, or feeling within your organizations, are closely aligned to our ways of thinking, and hopefully we'll be able to help you with new ways of tackling those during our presentation today. So moving on and discussing some of those employee experience challenges, I wanted to start by talking to you about some of the research into this space, which kind of spurs on Unily to kind of support organizations in tackling their employee experience challenges. And here we have a really interesting statistic, for example, from Gallup, which says that 85% of employees are not engaged in the workplace. And this we find to be, a very, very compelling statistic, especially when you pair that statistic with the fact that Gallup also asserts that highly engaged workforces are actually 21% more profitable. So when we talk about employee experience, I think there is some real kind of statistical evidence that supports the fact that actually investing in employee experience delivers real gains. And some of the statistics around, unengaged workforces are quite staggering. I mean, if we look at, for example, the Edelman Trust Barometer as an extension of this kind of, employee experience challenges, uh, 1 in 3 employees don't trust their employers. And again, you know, a relatively shocking statistic here. And then you have kind of leading speakers like Simon Sinek, who state that customers will never love a company until the employees love it first. And you have this kind of foundational element of trust that's lacking in some organizations. It's certainly concerning when we think that the employee experience you know, is driven by having that foundation of trust, and that then extends into the customer experience that engage with your employees on a day-to-day basis. Apparently in the USA today, only about 2 in 10 people can say the phrase, "I love my job," and that is something that we're looking to try and challenge. Now, when we kind of take those statistics and we start to lean now more in towards technology and the impacts that technology can have on the employee experience, 83% of employees depend on digital technology in order to collaborate, according to Gartner. Now, when we put that in the context of the current remote working scenarios, you know, the challenges raised by COVID-19 and these kind of macro factors that have led to greater reliance on technology to connect with our peers and to collaborate, you know, this statistic is not necessarily surprising, but it's incredibly important that we recognize the crucial role that technology plays in the employee experience. Today, for instance, you know, personally, my largest experience of my organizational culture and my ability to collaborate is done through the digital tools that I'm equipped with. There's no kind of you know, water cooler moments and you know, meetings full of my peers in order to collaborate and innovate. It's all being done through the technology that's being provided by the organization I work for. And this then, in combination with statistics around the desire for the technology we're provided to be of the same standard that we're used to in our personal lives, makes for a very compelling message around the need to invest in quality technology to improve the employee experience. So all of these kind of general employee experience challenges, whether it be from, you know, driving engagement, building trust, or just delivering the tools and quality technology our people need to be most effective in their work, are critical to the overall employee experience. Now, when we turn our lens then onto the energy industry and really start to focus down, I think actually a lot of these employee experience challenges, you know, we kind of double down on them with some of the industry specific challenges that we're experiencing. So we've got a quote here from John Moore at Bloomberg, which explains that, you know, essentially, you know, in the next 10 years are going to be a crucial period of energy transition, and the fact that digital tools and digitization are going to really open up new avenues for productivity and profitability. You know, but when we talk about the industry in transition, you know, the energy industry itself is really taking on, you know, new challenges and significant change. There is an increasing demand for the services that the energy industry provides. You know, you've got a constantly growing global population and you know, an ever expanding, you know, global economy, and power consumption and power needs are increasing. So it's an absolutely critical industry. Beyond that, of course, new technologies coming to the fore within the energy industry. You know, when we talk about technology, we're talking about it from both sides of that as well. So both the new technologies, you know, within the organization, you know, whether it be kind of employee experience platforms, collaboration tools, or whether it be things like artificial intelligence and machine learning, all of that kind of requires upskilling and adapting, you know, and supporting our employees to align with a new technology driven future for work. But on top of that, of course, the energy industry is innovating in a kind of external manner as well in relation to the energy sources that they're using and the new technologies that actually enable them. So you have all these existing shared employee experience challenges that are well established, and then you compound that with a set of industry changes which put additional pressure on energy organizations. And when we start to dig into those a little bit more, we can, pick out some more interesting statistics which really drive this home. So starting from the middle, oddly enough, I always find a really interesting one is that actually, vacancies in the energy industry are, apparently, according to the research, harder to fill. So attracting the top talent, retaining that talent, and reducing turnover is a significant challenge in the energy industry. According to Deloitte, in fact, in the UK, energy roles are on average 10% harder to fill than the national average for vacancies. So when we talk about employee experience and retaining top talent and bringing in that new talent, the energy industry really has a greater challenge in this space than other industries. And I guess the new wave of a younger generation entering into the job market, who have new desires for what they want to achieve from their working life, whether it be closer alignment between their personal goals and organizational goals, something explored a little bit more actually in our sustainability report, but also their a big desire from the millennials that have been surveyed, that they are really keen on constantly evolving their skill set to do the most meaningful work. So this desire to be always learning, and then obviously the flip side of that being that if they're not challenged, if they don't feel they're learning and evolving, that they might consider changing jobs. And then of course, when we talk about the innovation in the energy industry, and the fact that the energy industry generally is innovating incredibly rapidly in terms of the technology and services provided, there is a significant concern about, the availability of skills. New skills are constantly being required to manage new technologies and new services, and PwC have done research which states that there is concern over skill gaps. And all of this kind of helps to shape our view of the employee experience challenges being faced in the energy industry. And another one which is quite significant in the energy industry as well is around merger and acquisition and divestiture as well. So the energy industry, given the period of change it's going through, there's more kind of M&A activity happening, and our story today, when we deep dive into this case study, we're going to hear some of that discussed as well, which will be great. But we know that merger and acquisition and divestiture causes organizational disruption. It disrupts processes, it causes disconnects, and really that is going to play a significant role in the overall employee experience at any given time too. So we've talked a lot about challenges, but we're here to say that they can be overcome, and we really feel that technology and great employee experience platforms can help to manage these challenges. And a lot of the organizations that we work with, implementing new employee experience platforms to kind of manage these challenges, we're working quite closely with internal communications in many cases, and we feel that they play a pivotal role in kind of helping to shape the employee experience in the energy industry broadly, to help combat these challenges. And we've broken it down here really into 3 core points where we feel that internal comms deliver so much value in the overall employee experience. So whether it be kind of helping to align your employees to the kind of new transformational strategies of your business, or if it's helping employees to better realize and recognize their significant role in contributing to the big picture goals and mission of your business, or if it's engaging your employees to support them through new ways of working, whether that be kind of the remote working that we see very prevalent today, or whether it be new ways of working with new technologies. And we feel that internal comms can help in many ways to shape those experiences and improve them. And when they do so, we have good evidence to suggest that there is ROI in investing in the employee experience. MIT suggesting that organizations that actively invest in employee experience are 2 times more innovative, for example. We also have, for example, Gallup stating that the teams that score in the top 20, sorry, the organizations that score in the top 20% of engaged workforces actually realize almost a 40% reduction in absenteeism and 60% less turnover. So they kind of bring this an all-encompassing view to the overall employee experience, even though today a significant portion of that is digital in nature. And of course, our statistic around productivity and profitability as well. So we really feel that tackling these employee experience challenges brings real world benefits to organizations, including in the energy industry. So going to cover, briefly at this point, a few examples of the way in which that Unily likes to break down this challenge, primarily into these 6 core areas, some of which we'll talk about today. We won't necessarily be covering, say, the networked enterprise, for example, but we break down the employee experience platform and corresponding challenges into these 6 key areas. Whether it be about communicating around organizational change, new strategies, new information, or communicating more clearly and effectively around your corporate culture, the employee experience platform can help support internal comms to deliver messages in the right way at the right time across the right channels. It can be used to drive home culture and engagement. So we talked about talent retention and it being harder to recruit in the energy industry. And by exposing your top talent and recognizing them in a digital space amongst their peers, we can help to build a more positive culture and build a better overall employee experience. It could be around productivity and collaboration, and the employee experience platform being that hub for digital activity and innovation, which brings people together. And as we know, when great teams and great people collaborate, that's when the best innovation and the greatest ideas come to the forefront. So providing a central space for that to happen. In the energy industry, right now, of course, knowledge plays a really significant role. You've got, a rapidly changing industry, and delivering a single point of truth where you can get the latest information or the latest answers to help you remain compliant, to help you, for example, know your processes inside out, staying up to date on the latest kind of regulatory changes, for example. That kind of knowledge management is incredibly useful for your people. The networked enterprise we talk about in the context of the fact that no organization operates in isolation. All organizations have, valued connections, whether it's, stakeholders and investors, whether it's your client base, whether it's your partners, upstream or downstream, for example. It's about being able to provide secure digital experiences that help them connect to your business in better ways. And finally, it's also about the frontline worker experience. So whether you've got people on boats, or you have people on remote rigs, for example, or frontline engineers. It's about giving them the same tools and the same power, and giving them the same engagement opportunities that your more traditional desk workers have traditionally benefited from. So hopefully that's given you a good overview and an insight into the employee experience challenges that we experience working with our clients. And, hopefully we've kind of shared some insight around those employee experience challenges that we feel are particularly pertinent to the energy industry. At which point I'm going to hand over to Sebastian and from Arctus and Doug from TechnipFMC, and they're going to talk to us about their story.
Yes, thank you, Matthew. I just before starting and going over the POP project per se, we just wanted to give you a very brief overview of the methodology that we are taking into for internal digitalization projects. So we feel it's important to go through each of these steps. So the first one is to assess the digital maturity of the company, which gives you then the material necessary to define a clear roadmap. Therefore, you can choose the best technical solution to address those users' needs. And then you need to focus on the users and device governance and manage the change. So that's globally the approach that we always recommend to take. And luckily, that's the one we did with the intranet of TechnipFMC. And I think Doug will introduce that intranet right now.
Yeah, of course. So we have when three becomes one. So in January of 2017, Technip and FMC Technologies merged together, which left us with three intranets. The link was for Technip, inside was for FMC Technologies, and then we had stood up a SharePoint Online kind of almost like a landing page for day one information to try to help guide people to where they needed to be, knowing that it was a little bit cumbersome. Of course, having three intranets for employees to navigate across was cumbersome, costly, and inefficient. To create a more integrated digital experience, in 2018, we launched POP, which is now the single intranet for the company. So the team structure that we had shown here, so it really was a top-down effort. Our CEO requested that we have a new single intranet to get rid of the legacy platforms and better represent our company culture. There were a lot of strong expectations around the tool's capabilities and the impact it would have on the business, the employees, and just kind of everyone that interacted with it. There was a lot of expectations around that from our top leadership. So our CEO appointed Christoph and Stuart to deliver this new platform. They nominated Stella and Shelley to co-lead the project. And then both of them and their departments, respectively, so corporate engagement and IDS, reached out to Unily and Arctus to kind of help execute that project. And through constant support on the planning, we were able to avoid delays and complete that project successfully.
So a little more focus on the timeline. So I'm not gonna repeat what Doug just explained. Just what is important and the first challenge that we have to face when we are working with an energy company is also what Matthew exposed before, the constantly evolving environment where the companies are, as a modern company, TechnipFMC is, they have to merge, they have to acquire, they have to invest in companies. So Technip and FMC, they are merging together, then they need a new intranet, and here you have the timeline. And for the phase two, it was it is never a quiet river. So you may have followed that in August 2019, TechnipFMC announced the spin-off. So then therefore the intranet team project also had to adapt and to go into transition activities so that both new companies have their own intranets. However, in March 2020, because of the sanitary crisis and the oil and gas unstable markets, there was a hold on the spin-off. So we had then back to reverse to the actual current platform to ensure company employees have access to, the very critical information about the COVID-19 and the market. So the intranet has a very pivotal and central role to play, and we are also facing the challenge of adapting constantly to the strategy of the company. So that's one of the first challenge, and we're gonna cover a few more later. So of course, the main and central one for these, how to drive the employee engagement. So the steps we took to address this employee engagement challenge was the first one to have an extensive listening phase. So we met with 50% during intensive interviews, and we made sure to meet people from both legacy companies across business and locations. So there was a lot of outcomes that fed us to build the new environment, and more specifically to tackle the new information architecture, because we needed to reflect the company organization and give visibility on what is important to the employee new corporate environment. So be sure that they knew exactly what the other company was doing and the new services, and who was answering to who and how it was all organized. So we needed to give that kind of visibility on the intranet, and that was one of the early stage challenge that we had to cover. Then to drive employee engagement, we also felt that it was important to have a good branding for the intranet. So we've referred it to POP. So that name came from a naming contest with our ambassadors. We had more than 50 propositions. It was a great name. It stands for Power of Purple, which is the colors of the color of TechnipFMC. Technip color was like blue and FMC color was red, so the combining together was the purple, and the power of purple was then the brand of the intranet. It made completely sense, and it's a big success now. People internally refers really the platform as POP before being an intranet or a digital platform. It's really like you can find that on POP, and you can click here on POP to find that resources. And finally, we, rather than having 2 intranet homepage or even 3 intranet homepage on the legacy platform, it was strongly requested to have one main common default page for all employee to really reinforce this feeling of belonging. Then, just before going to the next challenge about employee adoption, I think we have a quick question to ask you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Sebastian. And we're really interested at this point, just before we jump into more of the kind of the journey for this, intranet implementation. I'm really keen to hear from our audience today. How critical do you feel that change management is when launching a new intranet? I think that organizations come at technology implementations differently. So if you go to polev.com/Unily, again, you can have your say. We do also now have a text option there as well. So, giving you lots of different ways to contribute your views and opinions on this. It's good to see some people highlighting the importance of this, and we can see this kind of adjusting in real time. It's also good to see, ironically, it's good to see people saying they're unsure, because it's good to be honest about whether or not you've considered the need for change management when implementing new technology. And I think we feel collectively that it is critical, that it is a very important aspect of rolling out any new technology. I think in some cases there can be this misunderstanding that if you build great technology and it does the things you need it to, that the change will just happen organically. And that would be incredible, of course, but more often than not, actually managing that change, especially when we talk about employee experience platforms, is incredibly important. There's a massive increase in expectation from these kind of centralized hubs, these kind of unified employee experience platforms, and therefore, being able to manage the change around implementing a new piece of technology like that is really going to, in our minds, help to achieve the best possible outcomes and ensure you get the most positive outcomes. And it's good to see that the very important has really risen there as well at the end. So thank you to everyone for participating, 56%. And for those of you who are unsure, that's good as well. Hopefully webinars like this will give you, some more reassurance and some guidance on the importance of these kind of, strategic decisions. Well, back to you then, Sebastian. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So of course, as a consultancy company, we always recommend our clients to really put a lot of effort and attention to change management in order to drive employee adoption. So we have an approach with 4 different steps to cover that. And the first one is really at the early stage of the project, and sometimes even before the project begins, to have promotion and sensitization to the key targets, which are the top executives, of course. And for TechnipFMC, we also had an ambassador network, so more than 70 end users that were involved on the platform, and that helped design the end product. And also deliver, the good word in their teams and in their location. We focused a lot on communication with a big communication campaign. We partnered also with a communication agency for that, and we created a whole communication plan to address the multiple targets. And of course, also here, the communication teams across the world were really good support, and we really tried to involve them as much as we could to deploy this communication campaign globally. And it was, so the launch of the intranet was done in one time across the globe, and the communication campaign was wonderful. But that's just not enough, and we need also to be able to ensure that end users and all the users can properly use the platform, and that is done through a proper training. So we developed a lot of material for end user training, like an end user guide, of course, different tutorials to know how to use and how to navigate on the platform. And we also put a lot of focus in our contributor networks and our site administrator network, which is quite extensive. I'm going to talk about that just after. So we developed also material to help them contribute better, understand all the guidelines and the governance principle, so that all the content is always accurate and up to date on the platform. And so the training is punctual, and we, after the training, we also have a professionalization and deployment phase, where, for example, we have a very vivid Yammer group where we are sharing constantly pop tips, good guidelines, and little information about the state of the platform, so that all the network is constantly updated about how to better use pop. So I think you're going to have a little overview of the launch video that we did to give you a better taste of what pop looks like. So yeah, that was it. So I hope it gave you a nice taste of the engaging branding I was talking about, and that really help people to understand what was POP about. But that's not just it, right? It doesn't just require a nice communication campaign. And one of the challenge we had to face also is to was how to reflect Technip diverse organization, because as a major company of the energy sector, TechnipFMC is constantly evolving and changing through mergers and acquisition. We've talked about that, and they have active location in more than 45 countries. So as a result, it's really it's a real challenge to represent that complexity in an intranet, ensure end user have access to the proper resources and information they need, and not just standard global information, but really useful and activable content. So in order to address that, the approach we choose was to have a very decentralized contribution. So we have a network of contributors and site administrator of more than 500 people that are trained to publish content and to create pages, so that they can publish the most accurate and relevant information for their audience. To sustain this network of contributors and ensure the respect of the guidelines, we have a very strong we have very close support and a strong governance in place. Just to give you a word about the local site process, migration process. So on the legacy platform, there was, I think, 80 local sites and 9,000 sub-sites. So that was huge. And we needed to streamline and rationalize that when we migrated to POP. So we've put in place a whole migration process. So now we have 45 local sites that are launched. And I think we've reduced considerably the amount and the complexity of the local content, hopefully for the better of the end users. And in order to give sense of it all, we're relying on Unily features such as targeted content and the multilingual capabilities, so that the end users can have access to the best of their content. And finally, the last challenge that TechnipFMC is facing, like a lot of other companies, is how to easily access to resources and collaboration tools. So POP is really part of a global digital workplace. So it's the go-to place for global, local, and business content. It's the main portal to a lot of TechnipFMC resources, and the other resources like the Yammer. So POP is highly integrated with Yammer, with the command section and the conversation flow. It's very vivid in TechnipFMC Yammer. There is a lot of groups, and the discussion are very open and active. So it's great to see and to reflect that and to display it on the platform. In TechnipFMC, there are also two knowledge management platforms, the Bridge and the Well, one being an enterprise wiki and the other being a governed communities of practice network. So they are led by the knowledge management team, and they are also part of this global collaboration landscape. And the last two platforms, of course, as a company using Office 365 intensively, they are relying on SharePoint Online and Teams for the close collaborative spaces. And I give Doug the floor to talk a little bit about the results of all of that.
Thanks. So yeah, I mean, this is just kind of a screenshot to show, the tool after, rolling it out and communicating it to kind of explain to everyone, how to use it and the best practices, has been widely accepted and adopted. And this is just a screenshot of, a few of the many positive bits of feedback that we've gotten about the new tool. On the next slide, there's some key metrics. And I won't go through each individual number, but some of the key ones that I think really stand out of importance to me is that 70% of our workforce is connecting to POP each week. We've launched over 300 sites and shared over 5,000 news stories, or I'm sorry, just 5,000 stories on POP.
Yeah, and projecting a little further. So we launched in 2018, which was like already 2 years ago. But we are constantly making evolution and improvement to the platform. So we have a whole roadmap for that. So the 3 pillars that we kept for 2020 as well as most probably 2021 also are aligned with the corporate engagement strategy, which is first to inform and engage, to connect and unite, and to excel and deliver. And we really tighten our pillars, our strategical pillars on this strategy. For each of these pillars, we have between 7 and 9 work streams with actions that are sometimes, projects defined in time. Sometimes it's more ongoing activities to ensure that the governance is well taken into account, that the users and the are getting on board on the training process. And sometimes it's more a project like we recently revamped the new homepage of the intranet, or we are developing connectors across the platform to always improve the user experience, of course. And maybe one of the thing we can say for the if we project a bit in 2021, we're going to try to get better in addressing the first line workers, as Matthew said at the beginning, most probably by focusing on mobile usages and developing a mobile application.
Great, thank you very much, Sebastian. And we're just now approaching the end of today's webinar. I'm just going to touch on a couple of last points. And I knew I'd forgotten to mention one thing at the very beginning, which is if you do have questions for any of our speakers, there is a Q&A function in Zoom for those of you unfamiliar. And if you'd like to post any questions in there for us to tackle in the Q&A in just a minute's time, then please, do so, and we'll try to work through some of those in a moment. And before we do, just building on from Sebastian's point about the future of POP and the future for Unily with TechnipFMC, it's worth noting that the Unily platform has an evergreen roadmap, so the technology doesn't stand still. It grows alongside organizations in the same way that the employee experience challenges that we're coming across in the marketplace are adapting. We're constantly adapting our technology to better tackle those challenges so that we can partner with organizations to overcome them. One example here that I've brought together in the context of engaging the front line and giving them even more powerful tools is a couple of sneak peeks into a couple of features that are going to be coming out at the start of the new year. So some kind of new and completely revamped mobile experiences. Obviously everything in Unily is already available on a mobile device, but we're going to be doing further enhancements to those to provide even more native, mobile experiences for those frontline workers. So on the left, for example, you see new user profile experiences, and on the right-hand side, a very exciting one, whether your frontline workers are, as I mentioned before, on a boat or, on a remote rig, or, even for organizations outside the energy industry, at 30,000 feet in the air, offline reading is actually going to allow those frontline workers to save the stories that are most important to them so that they can consume them at any time, regardless of whether they have an active internet connection. So a couple of exciting sneak peeks for you for our audience today. So thank you for joining, and hopefully that's of interest to you as well. So that brings us to the end of our presentation, and on time as well, which is great. And we have a few minutes left to do Q&A with everybody. So there's been some really good questions. And so, for example, the first question, Sebastian and Doug, for either of you who'd be interested in tackling this one, we've mentioned a couple of times now about mergers and acquisitions and that kind of activity in the energy industry. how does an employee experience platform like Unily help with that? Could it be that that just becomes another system you have to manage when you're already managing so many other complex systems?
So to answer that, it's I'm just going to take you back few months earlier in the year when we actually had to tackle that, because we were in the transition activities when the spin-off was announced. And what was nice to know is so the spin-off is not just it's even different from a merger where you have to merge two intranets into a new company one. Here there was really like one company that would still going to operate as TechnipFMC, and one company was going to act as a new company on its own. But in order not to start from scratch from nowhere, the decision that was taken was that Unily would operate as the internet platform as both company. And then it really was quite easy to say, okay, we are just taking the intranet as it is now, we're creating two new copies, and then it's just a cleanup effort, and it's not just having to rebuild from scratch two new intranets. So this technical effort was quite isn't by Unily. Of course, I'm talking only about the intranet part. As you mentioned, there is many other systems to manage, and the ideas team had an extensive work regarding that to decouple all their information system.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I can build on that, Sebastian, there's a couple of points. One, I think that, is really important is that having a centralized technology, like a hub, if you will, can act as the linchpin in these kind of activities, because in many cases, communicating clearly and effectively around change that's happening is the best way to bring people along with you on that journey. And by creating one central location where that information is stored, you provide a very clear message to employees about where they get their updates and how they can stay informed with the progress. And the flip side of that as well, from a technology perspective, is that actually technology can in some cases make that easier. In the case of mergers or acquisitions, Unily, for example, can integrate multiple different user profile systems or identity providers, if you will. So you could, for example, be merging with another company with their own Office 365, and actually Unily, through the application of technology, can bring both those organizations together in one hub. They use their own login details, they have access to all their own files, but the technology can actually make that more seamless, if anything. So just another side point there. And I think there's one other question which I'll take here, which is around how easily would Unily integrate with all your current systems. And I think in the example of POP, we've seen, for example, very deep Yammer integrations, and we provide a broad range of deep integrations with third-party services, many of which are kind of add-ons that you can just install for free from a gallery. So if you use Salesforce, there are a number of kind of pre-built integrations with Salesforce, for example, that you could install. Or if you use another tool, for example, there are kind of pre-built integrations which are specifically designed to smooth that process. But then there'll be other tools that you just link to. So in POP, again, for example, you saw, the kind of My Apps model, and that is that kind of digital springboard approach, a collection of personalized links to connect you to systems that wouldn't be so easy to integrate. And then another one for TechnipFMC and potentially for you as well, Sebastian, around frontline workers. We're planning, you are planning to do more with frontline workers, but what's your experience with this group of users so far? How important is the intranet in communicating with frontline workers?
I leave Doug give a word about it if you have anything to say.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, we I guess kind of to your earlier point, having a single point of, or a single location for people to get information is crucial. So, you know, obviously with everything going on in the world right now, communication has been more important than ever and more difficult than ever. So being able to, you know, kind of lead everyone to one source, and even if we send them an email, that it almost always is linking back to, you know, the meat of the information being in the intranet. You know, I know that we're hoping to kind of advance that to get more, to get better with you know, how we're using mobile for that, to make it even one step easier for those that don't, you know, work in front of a computer every day. But that's, you know, it's definitely crucial for us.
Yeah, just to give a bit more visibility. So for TechnipFMC, there are people working offshore, working on boats. It's very complex population, as they have sometimes very specific human resources status. So actually, we're planning to do more towards that, because we know from the internet point of view, sometimes they are a bit left over, and that's something that has been elevated to us, and at least to the project team, and that's something we are planning to address better in the upcoming months.
That's great. So thank you very much, Sebastian and Doug, for your time. Unfortunately for our audience today, that's all the time we have. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your participation. Hopefully we shared some insights with you that you can take away to your own organizations. Do give us feedback if you have any. And just to let you know as well, there are other kind of energy industry case studies and things like that that can be accessed via unily.com if you want to follow up on this with kind of other reading around what other organizations are doing. There's plenty of resources available for you. And that brings us to the end. So thank you very much for attending, and we will see you on the next one. Bye bye.